Here we go. Hello, everybody. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to McDuff Lives, and it's Friday, so it's time for our live chat with Marcia. We'll be back in 30 seconds. And we're back, and it's very nice to have our great friend and my wife, Marcia Keith, back with us. Hello, Marcia.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Hello, everyone.
Everybody, this is our Friday live chat, so feel free to drop a note in on our Rumble channel, McDuff Lives, which is all one word. We can also see your comments on YouTube, and I believe we can see X, although I'm not quite sure about that yet. Anyway, we are on X, we are on Facebook, and we are on 2 channels on YouTube, and our flagship is the Rumble channel. So that's where most people go to drop their comments. If you like to drop a comment or ask a question of Marcia or myself, we are here for you, and we're glad to hear from you.
Yes, thank you for being with us this morning.
And it's been 3 weeks
It has.
now since you and I have done a live chat, Marcia, and part of it was my travel, and I don't remember what the other reason was. I guess it was both
the
my
travel, both the travel and being away and then getting back and having to and rest up from the travel and
Right.
dealing with all the things that happened along the way.
Yeah, I had a major car problem on the way, so it took my attention away from enjoying the beautiful Myrtle Beach. But I did. I got some nice pictures, and
Yes, you did.
I got some sun, which was the big thing, because I'm, as you know, I'm really into sunlight now. A lot of people are talking it up about how important it is to get out in the sun. So that's what I did. I went out and laid on the beach, and I think I still got some sun.
Yeah, but you did it smart. I mean, when you talk about being out in the sun, remember, it's the early morning and late afternoon sun that is good for you, that middle of the day hot sun beating down on you, UV rays, those you want to be careful of.
Yeah. Well, I'll confess, I was a little bit bent out of shape this morning when I started watching my social media, and I realized, the people that are these committed liberal Democrats, they're not listening to us at all. They are not interested in anything that we have to say,
No.
and they just slap that MAGA label on anybody.
That's right.
And that's all they need to know. And and then it's they write songs about how Trump's going to get caught in the Epstein files. These songs are going all over the place about how the Epstein files are not going to go away. And it's funny because the Epstein files were there when Trump was in office for 4 years, starting in 2016.
Yes.
The Epstein files were there during the entire campaign for the election in 2024, and they are still there. And there have been a lot of powerful Democrats that have had the ability to reveal them all. And now you expect that just because Trump's in office again, that somehow there's some courage is going to rise up in the breast of Chuck Schumer, and they're going to force these things to come out. No way.
Of course not, because we all know why they didn't do something when they had that power of which you speak. And that is because they're in there too, or their colleagues are in there too.
Yeah.
They're all in there.
Or their investors are in there,
They're investors, exactly.
I mean, AKA supporters, but what we're really talking about is huge bundles of money that come into a candidate. Attached to that is an agenda.
Or as they say in Italian, sacco di soldi.
Sacco di soldi. I like that too. Yeah. So here's a sacco di soldi, but remember, how much you love Big Pharma. Don't forget.
That's right. Don't forget where it came from.
Yeah.
Don't forget who gave you this.
And don't talk about anything wrong with the jabs. They're all perfectly healthy. Don't worry.
Here's an Israel flag to fly in front of your office.
Oh yeah. And there's no genocide in Palestine. There's no genocide in Gaza, and all of that. That's Hamas. Hamas is murdering all those children.
Those terrorists, those Arabs,
Yeah.
they're all terrorists.
Yeah.
Palestinians, they're all terrorists.
I feel better now. I was so pissed off this morning looking at my liberal friends, and they don't seem to care about the people of Palestine.
No.
And they don't seem to care about the threat of the United States getting into a World War III with Russia, which I believe, and I think it's very, very clear, was the agenda of the Harris campaign. They were all about, let's just go ahead and nuke Russia. And even if we didn't do it, at the moment, there comes a point where it happens automatically. There's a lot of escalation going on right now in Ukraine. I follow on daily battlefield reports, and what's going on right now is a very, very bad reaction to the Alaska summit, where Trump went and he said, we're going to go and talk to Putin, and in a few more weeks we'll have a peace conference and we'll all get together again. And the European leadership, Merz and Starmer and Macron, they are so into and they can't really believe that Russia's going to invade Western Europe. I mean, but that's what they sell to their populations.
Right.
It's like,
you got to spin it.
If we don't, send money, to Zelensky, then Russia's going to take over France. And that's about the most absurd idea that anybody who has a real grip on the situation could come up with. I do follow Colonel Douglas McGregor, Marcia. Have you ever watched him?
I haven't, no.
He is a conservative, more on the libertarian side. And, he is one of the most forceful critics of Trump that you'll run into, but he's not a Democrat, he's not a progressive. He's a very conservative guy, but a highly experienced military man, a colonel who fought in the Iraq War and knows the ins and outs of military strategy. And, this is something that Biden and they never, all they wanted to do was just keep that war going. And that has a lot more to do with the investors in those candidates than it has to do with freedom for anybody.
So you say that in the stuff that you follow about the war in Ukraine, that the reaction to Russia has, stepped up. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
What's going on? So how does that manifest itself?
Well, Ukraine sends those long-term missiles into Russia, blows up a power plant or a fuel facility or something. They even sent one very close to St. Petersburg, Russia, this past week.
Wow!
Which blew up a huge facility. I think it was a fuel. Yeah, it was a fuel base that was where they facilitated the pipeline into the Middle European countries like Hungary. And so that's what Zelensky's big thing now is, to cut off all of the Russian gas that goes into Hungary and Poland, for instance. But where did they launch from to get all the way up to St. Petersburg?
You know what? I'm glad you said that, because that was my thinking the minute you said St. Petersburg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, the possibilities are that they sent some trucks undercover up through Belarus and launched them from there, or maybe they sent Navy units up around into the Baltic Sea and launched from there. But it seems to me that it's a lot more likely that they just send them over from Lithuania or Estonia or Latvia, that's just right next to St. Petersburg. So that's one thing, the escalation. And the other thing, I saw that Russia, in retaliation, bombed a couple of buildings in downtown Kiev, which they never used to do, because one of them was right next to the European Union's embassy.
Yes.
One of them was next to the British, I think, embassy, and they damaged some of these buildings, which is an escalation, by the Russians.
Yes. And I saw that one was an apartment building where people lived.
Yeah. Yeah, but they're, who are these people? Are these, American or Polish soldiers that are, sleeping there? There must have been some reason that they picked that building. It's not, but of course that is just another excuse for Zelensky to do something horrible. And that gets back to my point, which is that this stuff is going to escalate.
Yes. Yes.
So, and the Democrats in our Congress, if they stood up against war, which was the whole idea of my understanding of the Democratic Party, was that they were against war. But no, they're not. They are far more interested in continuing this war than I had ever conceived of when I was younger, and thought of myself as a person on the good guy's side.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When we were young and liberal and Democrats, we were going to, peace marches. Not that many, but
Well, I did too. Yeah.
yeah.
But not that many. I wasn't. I didn't have time for one thing. But I did go, and we had.
Right.
I went to the College of William and Mary, which was a very conservative place. But I was one of the anti-war guys that went out and sat on the outside, the perimeter wall there on Duke of Gloucester Street with the signs, and that was in the 70s, the early 70s. So now all of these people, my contemporaries, are like, they turn a blind eye to the war in Gaza. And for all I know, they're all about fighting Russia to death.
Yes.
I just want to take them by the shoulders and shake them and say, no, you're going to destroy the world this way.
Exactly. There is no good outcome. No good outcome. And how can they not see that? I don't know if it's denial. I don't know if it's arrogance. I don't know if it's stupidity, probably a combination of some of those things. But no, there is no good outcome to any of this.
And, one of the things that I've been saying for a long time about Trump is, he's the scary clown. And that's what they do, is they have, with the media and their pundits and their talking heads and their meme makers and all, they have taken a man who has tremendous bad qualities, but taken him out of the realm of let's look at facts and put him in the realm of cartoon character.
Right.
Where anybody that says anything good about him has got to be the enemy of humanity. And that seems to have gotten into their hearts somewhere, where it just can't be moved.
DTS.
You mean TDS? Yeah. Marcia, did you take too much LDS in the 60s?
Well, Brightmore says, meanwhile, Netanyahu has declared Gaza a combat zone after having called up 1,000 reservists and warning Gazans to evacuate to the south. Yep.
Yeah. And all the
Can you imagine?
all the food that's sitting on the borders of Gaza and ships and in the Egyptian border and everywhere around Gaza, there's plenty of food. They just, this is like a medieval siege where you just want to kill everybody.
Brightmore goes on to say the common denominator is the Yehudi, am I saying that right? Israeli dual citizens control Ukraine and Israel.
I'm not sure what Yehudi means either myself.
I don't know it either.
Brightmore, you tell us what Yehudi means and we'll learn something this morning together.
Yeah, though I am going to Google it too. Google as a verb. Yehudi is a Hebrew word meaning Jew, derived from the name of the ancient Israelite tribe and kingdom of Judah, says AI.
Okay.
It can refer to the religious identity of a person or be a masculine given name. Oh,
Mhm.
interesting.
Yeah. So, and there's one of the things that does it is to combine the religion with the country, which is where a lot of Americans get fooled, because American Protestants that have grown up on the Protestant Bible with the interpretation that the preachers give it, and is basically that there's a passage in the book of Genesis about if you support Israel, you'll go to heaven, and if you don't, you'll be in bad shape. But nobody goes back to see, well, who were they talking about? Who was Israel at that time? And
Well, and I've had people quote to me when I try to talk about this stuff that the Bible says that the Jews will inherit Israel and, get to live there or something. I'm not sure exactly what it says in the Bible, but I am certain that the Bible doesn't say that we're going to commit genocide against the Palestinians.
this has driven me into Bible studies, believe it or not, and it's not my first time at Bible studies. I have a half a dozen books that I bought back in the 80s and 90s where I was like, who really wrote the New Testament is one of the books that I bought. And then 10 years ago, along comes Bart Ehrman with his book, Misquoting Jesus. But I have been absolutely fascinated by Professor James Tabor.
You've talked about him,
who
yeah.
is retired from the University of North Carolina, Charlotte, has written a half a dozen books, and I'm going to start reading them. But he has YouTubes on his YouTube channel that really dig into who wrote, or how did the Bible get put together. And as a lot of people might know, the Bible didn't exist as a whole book until the 200s, the years 200, and it was put together by Bishop Irenaeus of Lyon in France, who designated each of the four principal gospels, the synoptic gospels they call it, and actually put symbols and animal names on all of these guys to make it easier for to spread it. So, for instance, in Venice, you'll see Saint Mark, Piazza San Marco, and where you and I spent a beautiful evening one
That's
time
right.
with some friends. So, yeah, I don't know how far to go into this, but
Yeah.
I am really interested in these ideas of who really wrote the book of John, who really wrote Matthew, and in what order were they written, and then you have this entirely different approach to Christianity that comes from Paul and Paul's epistles. So yeah, I've spent a number of hours this past couple of weeks just digging into that. But it doesn't really matter what I do, because the churches are so big and so persuasive that that they've reduced millions of people into thinking that well, Israel has got to win, so what happens to the Palestinians doesn't matter. It's just a horrible anti-human tragedy.
Well, and I think too that there's been a lot of indoctrination that has gone on over the decades. I know in my lifetime, hearing news stories about all of the conflicts in the Middle East, and the Palestinians were always positioned as the bad guys and the instigators and the ones who were dangerous and bad and terrorists. The PLO, Palestinian Liberation Organization, and Yasser Arafat. They were they were terrorists, and so that's how we think of the Palestinians, as being terrorists. And then, of course, we have expanded that started sometime in the 90s when we started having wars over there in Iraq and Afghanistan, and basically the Arabs were all terrorists and the Muslims are all terrorists, and the three, those words are interchangeable: terrorist, Muslim, and Arab. It's just this spin that has been put on that part of the world, Southwest Asia, that is just so wrong and so tragic. But it allows us Westerners to go, oh, it's just Palestinians. Yeah, they can go live somewhere else.
Yeah, because the Bible says, this is not theirs. This is Israel's land. And now, how big is Israel going to be? That's just kind of leads me into, America is already greater Israel. And if you look at the Congress,
Absolutely. I mean, as we have said many, many times, I've gone up there to advocate for the Palestinians, and I was just there as part of a group. I mean, the people who were really speaking articulately and directing the activities were others. I was just there to observe and learn from them and show my support. And it's just shocking to me to see how, to see those Israeli flags all over the United States Congress. They're everywhere, out in the hallways and, in the office buildings. And everybody, when you go in to speak to them to say, don't vote for funding for Israel for weapons to be used against the Palestinians, they go, okay, thank you. Thank you for coming by.
Yeah. Brightmore calls attention to RFK Jr. being criticized for saying that psych meds should be examined in light of yet another young mass shooter. And I think psych meds are a problem. I associate a lot of the bad stuff going on with these SSRIs and I even took Prozac for a couple of years back in the early 90s because I thought that was a good thing to do. But now everybody realizes no, it's not good. And this stuff, the idea of fixing somebody's mental condition with a pill, it's just so wrong. I think, sure, maybe some things, but most of this is emotional. It's like something bad happens to them and they flip out. I don't think that, we should be looking to big pharma to solve every problem that people have.
No, not every problem. Some psychological problems can be solved with meds because the brain does work differently, but not all of them, and not the way, you and I have talked about it, how we have become so dependent on pharmaceuticals to fix everything rather than fixing things with lifestyle fixes.
And love,
Yeah.
What about love?
Love and compassion and kindness. Brightmore goes on to say media is bending over backwards, trying to divert attention away from the Minnesota Catholic school shooter's trans status, which included a name change at 17 from Robert to Robin. Well, okay. I mean, we've all read that, so I'm not sure how we're diverting attention away from it, or even if that's an issue. I'm not, I'm not sure that the trans status is relevant to this. I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of people, at least a lot of people that I see on social media are very much, you'll put a meme up there that'll have, 10 of the mass shooting events,
Mhm.
and, then they'll say, well, this one was a trans and this one was trans and this one was trans. It's a lot of them that they post up there, but, that's their political view, is that, these.
Well, they've all been males too, so maybe we should,
males. Yeah.
let's just do away with males.
Well, I think we should just treat males, who have problems with compassion and love and not with medication.
Brightmore says ADL SPLC. I'm not sure what SPLC is.
Southern Poverty Leadership.
Oh, of course. Didn't hesitate
Council.
to use the mass shooting as another warning against anti-Semitism. But yet, which I don't get, because these people were Catholic. It was a Catholic school.
See, I think all of these lone shooter nutcases have been programmed in some way by forces of the intelligence agencies. I
Yeah.
think that they set these people up. I mean, the guy in at Sandy Hook, that guy was completely nuts.
Yeah.
How did that happen? You know,
Yeah.
he wasn't necessarily trans, but he was definitely on some meds, and you know, these things just don't just happen.
Well, I'm actually not aware of other mass shooters, school shooters being trans.
Yeah,
I'm fascinated that you say people are posting lists because I'm not aware of any, but maybe it just didn't come out. I don't know. Right.
I'm going to Google it.
Okay. All right. Well, in the meantime, CDC staged a walkout in Atlanta after Trump fired CDC director. Yeah, and several other top officials resigned. But it's not like she had been there a long time. Willie Fixit says last six.
Must be the last six.
Last six have been trans.
Uh-huh.
I don't believe that. But I will read up on that.
Yeah, there is a list that's going around on my X feed. Yeah, which is like 10 of them, and 9 out of 10 are trans. It's hard to believe.
Yes, it's very hard to believe.
Yeah.
But, let's just say it's true. Does that mean that? What does that mean?
I think it means that young kids have been given drugs to support their intention to change their gender, and that these drugs have had effects on them.
I see. So it doesn't have anything to do with being angry about being mistreated and rejected and ostracized and all of those things.
Don't ask me.
Okay. All right. Well, sometimes I think it's easy to villainize a certain group.
Yeah.
And then, find evidence to support your theory. But I guess that's true of pretty much any position on any issue. Brightmore says, all right, come on. There we go. Media searching for motive of shooter. Media similarly downplayed trans woman shooter at Nashville school. Officials refused to, I think the verb is missing there, but
to
release or reveal the shooter's manifesto.
Yeah, I remember that.
Okay.
And this one has a manifesto too, but I don't dig into these things. I just hope that this doesn't happen again and goes away.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole school shooter thing is such a weird development of modern days, It's so easy to go after it's so easy to use these innocents as targets for crazy people and people who have been brainwashed and as you say have been
and it generates
turned.
Mass hysteria.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they run these shootings, like well, all of them, Columbine, Sandy Hook, you name it. That one in San Bernardino. These things are pumped up by the media like crazy, which is why I try not to focus on them, because I know that they're just trying to make everybody scared, and look for a solution. And that solution often has to do with the compromise of our individual rights. That that's the overall agenda, to get us all to trade our freedom for security.
Be afraid, be very afraid. Yeah, I remember one time, all of these there was a spate of government shootings, local government shootings that happened, maybe, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years ago. So at the time I worked for local government, so we were having all of this active shooter training, and then suddenly they decide that all doors will be locked in the government building, and only certain people's IDs will be, allowed to unlock these doors. And the county administrator came to talk to our department and to explain to us why this was happening. And I said, I feel like I'm giving up my freedom over, something that's not very likely to happen. And, I am losing a lot of freedom. And I don't remember, I didn't say something like hysteria, but it was something a little more diplomatic. But he looked, probably one of the reasons he hated me, because he looked at me like I had 3 heads and didn't even comment on it and moved on. That comment about giving up my freedom was totally irrelevant.
And that's what the so-called pandemic was.
Yes.
I mean, the biggest exercise we've ever had in this country of giving up freedom on the theory that, if you don't participate in the lockdown, if you don't, take the jabs, then horrible things are going to happen. So people give up their freedom.
That's right.
And they allow things that, most people are smart enough not to let some mystery thing be injected into their arteries.
Right.
Most people are smart enough.
Something that it has not been thoroughly tested, something about which we have no long-term knowledge.
I found this list on X, so I thought I'd just share it with you.
Okay.
Let's see. There you go. Uvalde, Denver, Georgia. So, yeah, it's a pretty impressive list. I'd have to go through and vet it all.
Exactly, because I don't remember, some of these I don't even remember. But the ones that I do, the Uvalde, the Georgia, I don't recall any reference to these people being trans, and I would go back and check it as well, because just because somebody put it, DSON 11B10 put it on Twitter doesn't mean it's true.
I agree, but that's what's going around. You see. There's pictures.
Here's the thing, you know what, and maybe this trans issue is one that I should not be engaging in, because that is one of those issues about which I feel very, very sad that there is so much hate and so much misunderstanding about what it means to be trans.
Yeah.
And trans people are being vilified. Leave them alone, let them live their lives. Sorry, there is physical reason that people are trans. It's not so black and white as Donald Trump wants to make us think. And there are people that are born with ambiguous genitals. And it does happen, and it is being studied. And it's not, if you haven't studied the issue and gotten to know what trans people go through, then leave them the flip alone. Let them be. They're not hurting us. Okay. I've said it, and I know I probably pissed off some people.
No, it's just, there's so much depth to both sides of that argument that, you could spend days on it.
Yes. Well, we're not just spending days on it, we're spending decades on it.
Yeah.
And we had made some progress. People who were trans were finally able to come out and have some freedom and have some respect and dignity. And now we're taking it all away again.
Yeah. People get afraid of messing with children's minds, for instance.
Well, good. Brightmore's changing the subject, which I kind of am glad for. Once again, this is not. USA Today reported on alpha-gal syndrome, an allergy from a Lone Star tick bite. Symptoms include potentially fatal reactions to red meat, dairy. This is not new. And you know what? I'm interesting that USA Today is reporting on it because alpha-gal has been around for a while. And when you were, doing so many shows with Adam, I think it was mentioned and was brought up, but not, not a whole lot. And but we actually, our friend who comes and cleans for us, her husband has been diagnosed with alpha gal, and others have. It's another one of those things that you get from a tick, and it's very, very odd. And the fact is that you do get a reaction to eating meat.
I don't eat meat anymore.
That's right. That's right.
I do want to, on the subject of nutrition, I have to say this. 3 months ago, you started me having a lot of flax meal in my food. And so we put like 3 tablespoons of it in our oatmeal in the mornings. Not in my one bowl, but in the whole thing.
2 bowls.
In 2 bowls. And you cook it into a lot of other food that we
I use
eat.
it in the bean burgers. I put flax in the lentil loaf we had last night. Absolutely.
So in that 3 months, when I had my blood work this week, and it came back that my bad cholesterol, my LDL cholesterol, had went down from 119, which was already pretty good, to 67.
That's just
in 3
mind-boggling.
months.
Yeah.
And it has to be the flax meal that did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, because it was about 3 months ago that we started doing that.
and talk about, healthy heart, that's
Well, and that your total cholesterol went from 170 something, which is normally considered good, to 120. That's just that's miraculous. That's wonderful. That's an amazing drop.
yeah. Brightmore's talking about the jab now, and I have to say, I try to be as gentle and subtle as I can, when I try to put something on Facebook about, well, it's one of you always talk about correlation versus proof, but the correlation is so high between these cardiac events and the number of jabs that a person takes. And what John Baudouin points out, he's from Massachusetts and he's a statistician, and he is really on the warpath about this, that the media is telling us about the myocardia, and we're seeing the athletes drop and things like that. But that's a tiny amount of the adverse reactions. And the most of the adverse reactions are, in fact, kidney failure. That sudden kidney failure is like 1,000 times more prevalent than myocarditis for people that take the jabs. And, he's not getting, he's been saying this for 4 or 5 years now because he's known the numbers and he keeps publishing it. And he starts to get some traction, but nobody that has a huge audience is picking him up. And I wish they would. His name is John Baudouin, Beaudouin. And he's very active on X. So I admire his work and his dedication. Hey, Willie Fixit's here. Hi, Willie. Yeah, athletes dying from myocarditis it is nuts. I mean, why do we give people these healthy people, and then put something in them that's going to cause a blood clot?
Right.
And nobody wants to look at, like, Adam Finnegan's work, the sleeper agent, which shows over and over and over again for the past 150 years, the military departments of governments have been fostering the creation of bioweapons not only like anthrax that might kill a bunch of people at once, but strategic bioweapons that are subtle and you don't even notice it until 10 years later or 20 years later. This is Ed Haslam's book, Dr. Mary's Monkey. Now, he wrote a chart in his book in the 1990s that said that we're going to have a epidemic of soft tissue cancers in 20 or 30 years. And here we are having them. But, nobody wants to look into what could have caused it that we did 20 years ago. The best thing that we can see right now is blaming it on the pandemic and the jabs. And so most of the people that are saying that cancer, the spike in cancer is horrible and got to do something about it, are looking to blame it on the jabs, whereas millions and millions of us got the polio vaccine. Everybody has gotten all of these other vaccines that have been pushed into our children when we're young, and what the kids are getting 70 or 80 of these jabs, and it just takes my breath away to think about how incredibly anti-human our medical system is.
It is, and most people just don't want to believe that. They don't want to accept the fact that those in charge do not have our best interests at heart and are not protecting us and are not fighting for us. They want to believe that there is somebody out there who they can trust and who is going to look out for their best interests, because that way they don't have to stay informed. All they have to do is do what they are told. And they don't want to believe that there are people out there with sinister intentions and with a completely different agenda than what we think is going on.
Right. And the fact is, the powers that be, the powers that have been in power since the beginning of the 20th century, let's just start from there. Number one, are racist. They are. They have a tradition of being racist, like Woodrow Wilson, but not just him, the scientists like Simon Flexner of the Flexner Report. The whole idea of creating a black medical university like Tuskegee. Why not just let everybody get the same education in medicine? Well, because a lot of those white doctors didn't want to have black people standing next to them in the operating room.
Exactly.
This is racist.
Yes.
And it is still a big thing in the background that people don't talk about. In matter of fact, these are the same doctors will say how horrible somebody else is for being racist. But this, number one, it's racist, but number two is anti-democratic. They hate democracy. They hate the idea of common people having an effect on the government. It's a complete opposite of the Constitution.
They truly do not believe that we are all created equal.
They don't.
No, not at all.
No, that idea
Right.
of Jefferson, saying, "Oh, we're all created equal." No, that didn't make it into the Constitution, actually, did it? All men are created equal.
It is in there somewhere. Maybe not. Oh,
What's the matter?
I'm trying to remember where it is.
Sad and depressing that evil prevails.
Yep.
No, I think
Rachel, you're so right.
All men are created equal comes from the Declaration of Independence.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right.
And that was the problem, was the southern states didn't want to admit that, and still don't, a lot of them.
You know what? I have to speak up for the South a little bit, because we always talk about racism in terms of the southern states. Some of the most racist comments I've ever heard in my life came from non-Southerners. I have heard people here in Maryland say some really, really vile things I've heard a lot of racism from a relative by marriage who was from Connecticut. Um, I don't think racism is limited to the South. I think racism is everywhere.
Yeah, I'm talking about the governments, the Southern governments that would, the Jim Crow laws. Now it also you can't say that without including Indiana, Illinois, the Copperhead Nation people, the Golden Circle. That wasn't limited to the South, and so it's always been the case that royalty, doesn't want their daughters to marry blacks.
Oh, well, or their sons.
Yeah, or their sons.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because they want to preserve the bloodline. Now, this is the main thinking of racism, is that there are different bloodlines. So that's why you have to have a Tuskegee to work with the HeLa cells, because the HeLa cells come from Henrietta Lacks, who was black. And white doctors don't want to, this is me speculating, okay?
Right.
But I'm on a rant right now, so I'm going to keep
Go
on.
for it.
I'm going to say that the reason that they had to make the HeLa cells at Tuskegee was because they came from a black woman.
Yes.
And the doctors that had to do the technicians, the ones that had to do the lab work to make more HeLa cells for their research, they were afraid that they might get some of that black person's blood into their blood system and pollute their lineage forever.
Yeah, exactly.
Because this BS about different races is so pervasive. Why can't we all just say, hey, the statistics show that we're all related to each other. If you go back to the year 1000, there's just not enough people on Earth in the year 1000 that we're not all related to the same people.
Not only that, there is no marker in our DNA for race. Exactly. And they learned that from the Genome Project. So that's a new notion. People used to think that the DNA of other races was different, and it's not. You cannot tell a person's race by their DNA. What you can tell is what part of the world their ancestors might have come from. So you can tell geography, and geography often implies race. But no, there is nothing in our DNA that dictates that shows what our race is. Race is a man-made construct, and it's constantly getting redefined. Constantly.
I want to take this one up, if you don't mind. Brightmore says democratic cities, including Chicago, and we talked about this with David Kramer Underdown on Tuesday.
Great discussion.
Thank you. And so, yeah, Chicago, speaking out against Trump's remarks about sending National Guard troops to fight crime. Well, they're not against fighting crime, okay? They're against Donald Trump.
Exactly. Okay. Exactly.
Anything that Trump does, you're going to label it as fascist, and racist. And, the only one that he doesn't get accused of is being anti-Israel, because he's completely pro Netanyahu.
Yep.
Yeah, I really do. All the depth that we've studied here at McDuff Lives, with Harley Schlanger and Anton Chaikin and many other people that, either were or still are with the LaRouche organization, have shown us, and I've read many of their articles, and they have shown us that this Zionism, this modern Zionism, is a British creation.
Mm-hmm.
And, why? And also the racism, it goes back again to, we need some people to exploit. So let's make slavery based on race. And then anybody that's black, we can throw them into the slave pen. And they did.
Right.
All over this country.
All over the New World.
Yeah.
It wasn't just this country. It wasn't just the United States. It happened throughout Latin America, where Black people were brought in to go work in the mines. After they killed off all the native populations or assimilated them, and they brought in Black people from Africa as well, throughout Central America and South America.
And when we stopped importing slaves in the United States, we started importing Irish people to come and dig those mines and, you know,
And treated them almost as badly, not quite, but
I think in many cases it's been as bad.
well,
You know,
we're not going to go there.
but that's a difference of opinion, I guess. But that's just another thing, is that they want a class of people that they can exploit,
Right.
and that's why they use things like racism, and then they teach, the victims that the perpetrators are the middle managers, the people, and the real perpetrators, the ones holding the whip. These are the overseers.
Right.
So these are low class, uneducated white people who become the whipping post for people rising up against racism. But nobody is looking past that to say, well, who taught these white people that there are differences in races and you better not mix them up? Well, who taught them that? Because these are not educated people.
Right.
So they just go along with what's said, well, I'm frustrated.
Yes.
I am frustrated. I've been frustrated all morning, and I guess it hasn't changed.
Well, we'll go on to this comment from Brightmore. Trump just revoked Kamala's Secret Service protection just before she begins her book tour. But you know what? Why does she get Secret Service protection beyond what the law allows? The law says 6 months. Biden extended it beyond the 6 months, I think for another year beyond that. But why? Why does she get more Secret Service protection than any other former vice president? She doesn't. And so she's going out on a book tour. Okay, that was your choice. That doesn't mean just because you're a former vice president, you're going on a book tour, doesn't mean that you merit Secret Service protection. So I say, bravo to Trump. The thing that drives me crazy, again, it's this: anything that Trump does is wrong, where he is doing a lot of common sense things. He is, for years we have complained about how our government is inflated and it's too many layers and too much bureaucracy, and we're spending way too much money to run this government. So he goes to streamline government and get rid of all of this excess, and he is criticized. And he's saying, wait a minute, why are we paying for Secret Service protection for this one vice president when we haven't for all the others? That to me is common sense. So I say, fine, go on your book tour, Ms. Harris, but don't expect special treatment.
I had a kind of an interesting moment yesterday on my on my Facebook page, actually, where I posted that at least it's my opinion, that when you look at the impending techno-fascism that is coming, as we see things happening with all of these, satellites and digital and the AI and all this stuff, it looks very clearly to me that this is a system that's going to be able to track us and to see whenever we do something that's out of line, that's going to take our money away from us if we don't have a good social credit score. This thing is coming. It's happening around the world. Mm-hmm. It's happening in Europe, digital currency and all that. The only people that are really raising hell about that are the MAGA people. And I said, right. So I'm with MAGA on that. And I posted a meme on my social media that basically said, objection to this technocracy that's impending. And I said, the only people that I see objecting to it are the MAGA people, and I'm with them. And this one of my correspondent friends, that happens to live in Ireland, where they get a lot of anti-Trump stuff.
Yes.
Liked it because and I think that he identifies with the fact that we need to focus on the technocratic future, but then he took his like off when he realized that I was associating it with MAGA people, because
Oh,
anybody that's associated with MAGA people can't be part of their world. And I mean, I love my friends that are MAGA people. I'm not a MAGA person, but they're honest people. They're good people. They have good motives, and maybe they're misled about something here and there, but I
we've
think they took a good hard look at our society and seeing what's wrong with it.
we've got to stop characterizing people as in two columns. We've got to stop putting everybody in two columns. Human beings are much more complex and multifaceted and diverse. And I speak in favor of Trump and everybody goes, "Oh, you're a Trump supporter."
Yeah.
No, I can speak out against a lot of things that I dislike about Trump. There are things that the Democrats have done that might be okay. There are, I am not that simple, and neither are you, and neither are you, all those people out there. And so to say MAGA people think this or the liberals think that, we've got to stop thinking that way. We've got to stop dividing by two. I think that hurts us so much because we don't understand each other. Somebody thinks they know what I think simply because I have said that I don't think that we need to be spending the money to provide Secret Service protection for Kamala Harris. And they go, "Oh, you're a Trump supporter, so I'm not going to talk to you about this and that and the other because you're a Trump supporter." It's wrong.
But they're losing. I don't see them gaining any traction. I think
Them being who?
the people that you said I shouldn't characterize as the other. In other words, the liberals and the progressives. That
Oh, I'm talking about the other way around. But yes, it works both ways.
And they're losing. And the more that they beat the drum about, we're going to get Trump, on the Epstein list, they just keep digging themselves in the deeper hole, because
Absolutely.
nobody is going to make a judgment as to who should be the president on that very convoluted question. It's what we really need to do is get rid of these damn secret intelligence operations entirely.
Yes.
What if the United States became an honest government for a change?
Imagine. Brightmore notes that Trump is sending warships to Venezuela. The war for our foreign interests continues amid the distractions in the news. Yeah, the warships going to Venezuela, that is to me very interesting as well.
Yeah, because Maduro,
Mm-hmm.
it turns out that he's actually not a politician. He's the biggest drug dealer in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've got to send our ships over there. Right. Like, it has nothing to do with the oil in Venezuela. Nothing to do with that.
No, of course not. It's all drugs. Because, we're certainly not drug dealers, our government.
Right. That's why. Of course, we're the drug dealers. Of course, our government is the drug dealers. Of course, the CIA has been running it since the Golden Triangle in World War II, and the Corsicans and Marseille and all of that stuff in the French Connection. All of it is CIA secret ops to control America by addicting people and stealing the money out of their paychecks so they can get their fixes.
That's right.
And that's another one. I just don't know why good-hearted people on the liberal side cannot see that the government is the drug dealer. It is.
Yes,
and
exactly.
And in Great Britain, it's that's where it all comes from the British East India Company.
Mm-hmm.
And the British, the whole system is the system of pure capitalism, whereas you do whatever you can to make money, And the hell with everybody else. The hell with everybody else.
There you go.
That is the world that our powers that be live in, and our world and our building, that we all should be scared to hell of, and we should all be talking together about how to disempower these idiots like Tony Blair, Keir Starmer, the Bushes, and all of the puppets that have been our presidents since JFK.
That's right. That's right. Well, we have run out of time, you know.
Undo the coup.
Undo the coup.
That's the only answer I can come up with.
We're headed into the Labor Day weekend, so hopefully everybody gets a 3-day weekend and can celebrate the hardworking Americans.
I'll be back on Monday morning, holiday or no holiday, for another edition of Undo the Coup, and we're going to be talking about the cover-up conspiracy. The conspiracy to cover up the assassination, that is the real crime. The conspiracy to cover up the the conspirators, from J. Edgar Hoover, LBJ, CIA, you name it. The ones that said that we can't afford to let the people know everything because then they'd get angry and might want to have a revolution or something.
That's
we
right.
better not tell them.
Yep.
National security. That's where the problem is that we've all deferred to national security for too damn long. It's not national security. It's their security against the rest of us.
Nicely put. Well, I look forward to that show on Monday.
Wow, it's 12:02.
Yeah.
I guess we better go have lunch.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all. We'll see you on Monday. Bye-bye now.